Right, so I wanted to put together a quick video detailing some of the enumeration steps that we perform on penetration tests to look through S3. If you're not familiar with S3, S3 is AWS or Amazon Web Services cloud object storage solution. It essentially is a really fast, lightweight way to store data and files inside of AWS. And people use it commonly to serve content for web applications, store loads of data used by maybe some internal app, or just as a data warehousing solution. The service itself has a really long history of a lot of high profile breaches. So it was released back in 2006 and quickly became one of AWS's most popular offerings. And because of that, it has just led to a lot of high profile misconfigurations through what's called an open S3 bucket, which you might have heard of. So let's go ahead and walk through enumeration steps that you can use to search for this from an offensive side, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the alternate use cases and misconfigurations that you might encounter. One of the favorite tools that we like to use repeatedly on every engagement is a tool called Cloud Enum, made by a really great guy named initstring. You can grab a fresh copy of this just using git, so git clone github.com with this URL. I'll go ahead and do that quickly and we can jump into the directory. Once you're in the directory, you'll want to set up a Python virtual environment, again, just to avoid conflicting with any dependencies that are installed on your machine. In this case, I'm just operating on Kali. Once you have a Python virtual environment set up, you can use the source command to load it into your existing session. So source bin/activate. And at this point, you're now in the Python virtual environment. So with that configured, you'll want to install the dependencies that Cloud Enum uses. So you can use pip3 install -r requirements.txt, and that'll go ahead and grab all the different libraries that Cloud Enum needs to perform its enumeration steps. And just like that, we now have, I could type, Cloud Enum configured and ready to be used. So we'll talk a little bit quickly through usage. Really, the only thing you need to specify is this -k keyword. So that can be the name of the company that you're trying to target, maybe a specific product that a company offers. And what Cloud Enum will do, among other things, it'll take that keyword and it'll automatically add permutations to it and some brute force modifications to it to allow the tool set to search for potential buckets. So it's basically like a brute forcing tool, if you're familiar with web app testing, almost like FUF, but for S3 specifically and other cloud resources. So in our instance, let's go ahead and target contoso.com. And what I'll do is I will add the disable Azure and disable GCP checks, just since we're really only talking about S3. And I will go ahead and run that, and it will start working through different permutations of our keyword, and we can resume whenever it's finished. All right, so after a short period of time, Cloud Enum has finished its enumeration steps, and at the bottom here you can see that it's picked up a couple of different buckets, all with different permutations of the contoso keyword that we gave it. It only took 39 seconds, which is really great, which you can see down here. And yeah, this is just why the tool is so great and why we use it so much. It's under 5-minute setup process, and within a shorter period of time, you have some enumeration information about cloud resources that are used by a product or an organization. So in this case, and of course I checked this beforehand, this is very intended. Each of these buckets is protected, right? So it's not public. The vast majority of S3 breaches are from open buckets where anybody can access them, list the contents, and see what's inside. In this case, each one of these, at least from a web browser, you cannot access directly. But there is a caveat. So there is a setting you can configure within S3 that allows any authenticated user to access resources within the bucket, or more granularly perform specific actions. But in this case, let's just say list objects and grab objects within a bucket. So you might ask, what's an authenticated user? Well, that is any user that has valid AWS credentials. So whenever you set up the AWS command line interface, once that's configured, you're essentially an authenticated user and you can access AWS services, even if you're not in the same AWS account that the bucket is in. So let's say we're skeptical, right? We think this Contoso bucket is actually accessible as an authenticated user and we want to test for it. Well, it's super simple. I already have the AWS CLI configured on this machine, and with the simple AWS S3 ls and then the path of the bucket command, we can try to list objects within this bucket. In this case, again, it failed, which is good. It's intended. I wouldn't be showing you if it didn't fail. But in some cases, I've scripted this out to test a broad series of buckets to try to search for this edge case configuration. So within a few minutes, we've now enumerated a series of S3 buckets with only a keyword and some Python scripting. Again, thanks to initstring for making the great Cloud Enum tool. We really love it and use it a lot. And hopefully this is informative and a good demonstration of just how quickly and easily anybody on the internet can start enumerating S3.